Hey there. Today I want to share some thoughts about learning language and code as a language as a way to understand how computers work and how to apply that kind of structured, systematic thinking to solving problems as an entrepreneur. So after my first venture, Just Customs, failed, or should I say, I gave up because I didn't believe in myself and my ability to overcome the problems that I saw. I decided to study abroad in Israel, and I was really motivated to learn the Hebrew language for a variety of reasons, which I can go into further. But the main thing for me that I took from the process of learning Hebrew was how I learned in immersion and the role that immersing oneself into any given context plays in creating new understanding and rewiring your brain. And so I'm going to share a few thoughts on how I approach learning Hebrew and how that applies to other things that I've acquired in terms of skills and other dimensions of my life, and some specific takeaways that you can have as well. So before I moved to Israel or studied there, I didn't actually become a resident. I bought a bunch of different books. I met with a mentor, this amazing guy in our neighborhood, Pat Harrison, who studied biblical Hebrew, and I was interested in both the spoken version of Hebrew and the written version with an ancient root. And they actually are different languages, but we can go into that later. They have similar structures. So I spent some time priming my brain before I landed in Israel. I did Rosetta Stone, I watched videos, I listened to music, I tried to get a little bit of context before I arrived. I remember the first time I got into a bus, a taxi cab kind of thing in Israel, I had no idea what the guy was saying. And I was just like, University of Haifa, that's all I could really say. They were speaking so fast, I was so overwhelmed, it was absolutely terrifying. He kept asking me questions that I couldn't answer. He literally ended up pulling me and my bags out of his van, putting me into a different van, and was just like, you'll be okay. And I got there. I arrived, I walked into the shop at the University of Haifa, and I couldn't read anything on the shelves, and it was bliss. I remember trying to look around and find my first bite to eat after having traveled for 18 hours, something crazy, with a stop off in London. And I think I bought something, probably like cat food, I have no idea. It looked like a can of tuna, but it was disgusting. Nonetheless, I sat there eating this crazy, ridiculous meal of crackers and cat food and, big plastic bottle in my dorm room. And I remember crying tears of joy because I was out of my element in every way. I was a child again, and I loved it. And I proceeded over the next 4 weeks to immerse myself in daily Hebrew study in a program called Ulpan, which is a special type of Hebrew instruction in Israel, where you basically have 5 hours of instruction, you go do 2 or 3 hours of homework, and then you do it again. It may have been slightly different in terms of actual timings, but I had a group of people who were assessed in their linguistic capacity at similar levels to me, and the teacher was amazing. She only spoke Hebrew. Her name is Shlomit Chaushu. If you guys want to learn Hebrew, I'll hook you up with her. She's fantastic. And the thing that really made a difference for me was that she just refused to speak English. Everything was in Hebrew. So I was listening to Hebrew in the instruction. I was reading in the textbooks. I was learning how to write it. That was the other thing that I did before arriving, was begin to really identify the alphabet and understand the character formation. I've got crying babies over here. Shut that. So I started also writing down my thoughts in a journal, and subsequently my dreams in Hebrew. And I read my dreams from the day before I went to sleep. And I did this every single night. I kept a little pocketbook. This is actually one of the few that I had in that time. And I would write down every single new word that I learned. Every one. I'd be having a conversation, or I'd be learning something in Ulpan, and I would say, Maze, what's that? And I'd understand, and I'd write it down in Hebrew with the script, and then I would obviously start writing in English initially, but then later learn to defining terms in Hebrew in itself, so anchoring the neural synapses in the new context, right? So instead of saying, lechem, bread, I would say lechem mataro ochel ba'arochat erev, what you eat at dinner, right? And this sort of reinforced the levels of connections in my brain. And amazingly, this combination of immersive ulpan and full-time instruction, writing new words down every single day and reviewing them every day, writing my dreams down and then reading my dreams in Hebrew. After 3 weeks, I started dreaming in Hebrew. I remember the first moment it happened. I was on a beach in Eilat, and I was lying down in the sun, just drifting off into sleep, like that diffuse thinking that is talked about in I think day 5 about knowledge acquisition and learning. And there were people speaking Hebrew in the background, and I fell asleep in that context. And then the dream continued in Hebrew. I didn't understand all of it, but it was there. And that's when I had this tipping point where suddenly the acquisition of language entered into my subconscious, and I was unleashed this new ability to learn. And so I ended up doing another ulpan after that and continuing my instruction and learning. But that was kind of the big milestone for me. It was like, wow, I'm dreaming in Hebrew. And I started speaking. I spent loads of time practicing accents and pronunciation because I found that when I spoke Hebrew with a strong American accent, people switched to English. And that was a problem for me, right? Because I needed to speak in Hebrew as much as possible to acquire the language and ability to converse in Hebrew. And I found that there was almost like this structure and repetition of any given conversation. And I was beginning to memorize the lines of those typical conversations and understand the permutations, like a decision tree, about the possible avenues that it could go and what people might ask. And then I knew from the repertoire of phrases and vocabulary what I could grasp for if I wasn't quite sure what they said, or if I only caught a few words. But the key thing was that I tried to stay in Hebrew, and I did everything in my power to understand what they said and to reply in Hebrew, and to express my naivety and my ignorance in that language. And that was really powerful. I ended up having amazing friendships with Israelis. And one of my very, very best friends to this day is an Arab Israeli Druze, which is a different type of people and a different type of religion that I'd love to share about. They're the most peaceful, amazing people on earth, in my opinion. I love the Druze. They're fantastic. And they're like glue in Israel, connecting Jews and Muslims and Christians. They're amazing. But I won't diverge. So, to recap, learning a language taught me so much about learning in general. 1, the role of immersion and being absolutely surrounded by whatever you're trying to learn. 2, getting up to speed with the terms, the specific words that are pertinent in that subject matter. And 3, trying to bring the information into your subconscious such that you can allow that vast ocean of wisdom that lies beneath your conscious mind to start to do its work. And then, also the 4th bit was probably perseverance and grit, that determination to succeed and to not give up when someone switched to English, say, I want to speak Hebrew right now. What's wrong with you? Talk to me. And even if it's humiliating, even if you're feeling like a bit of a child, it is absolutely amazing. So I'll talk another session about learning how to code, but I thought that this was an interesting learning for me along my journey. Hope it's fun for you. Talk soon.